Now, Dolphins-Packers game, it was the primetime game of Thanksgiving.
Yellow.
What was your biggest takeaway from this game? I feel like this can be open-ended. I feel like we can have different ones. Drew, I can start off with you.
Of course.
What's your biggest takeaway?
I really, really didn't hate watching this game, believe it or not. I say that with the idea that it was my first time watching a Dolphins ass kicking on primetime, and I felt in my heart for the first time, this isn't on Tua. For the first time in a long time, this is not on Tua. And it was fun to watch people on Twitter immediately say, this is just what you get out of the Dolphins. This is what you get out of Tua. But very easy for me to sit and watch this game and have three main takeaways. This offensive line's still not good. Newsflash, we've known that for a long time now. This run game is not good. Newsflash, we've known that. But Twitter still doesn't know that. People that watch football still don't know that because it immediately still goes back to 2 and 3. I need some level of accountability to Mike McDaniel. Some of his decision-making, his play calling, especially in the red zone, just makes me scratch my head. Now, this offensive line gets glossed over because Tua is incredible at getting the ball out quickly. And that's what makes the pressure to drop back ratio look cleaned up because Tua is extremely quick to make a read and make a decision and get the ball out quickly. The run game, and why I mentioned Mike McDaniel with that as well, is because, again, a lot of people immediately go and point to Tua and say, he doesn't have a strong arm. He's good, not great. And that was an interesting quote from you. That really was funny, but fair. Because, again, it was funny more than anything.
Wait, what was the quote?
He's good, not great.
It's accurate.
You said that?
Yeah. He's good, not great.
When did you say that? Yesterday?
Said that after the game.
Because let me finish real quick and then you can get into it. I'm not trying to target you there because you weren't the only one that said it. But I just thought it's so funny because McDaniel coming into taking this Dolphins job was supposed to be a rush guru. He was an amazing rush offensive mind. We saw that in San Francisco, and people thought, oh my God, with Tua, that's exactly what he needs. He needs a great run game to counteract him, to make up for his weak arm. But I watched against the Packers. The only thing that worked for the Dolphins was Tua's arm and the pass offense. Now, Mike McDaniel, this rush genius, 31st in rush EPA on the season, 22nd in success rate when it comes to rushing the football. And you have Devon Achane and you have Raheem Mostert, who's obviously not the same level of rusher that he was last year. But Achane was one of the most efficient running backs in football last year. But he hasn't been that efficient this year. Which brings me to my first point. This offensive line is still not good. And it immediately reminds me of Seattle because I believe Geno Smith is a hell of a quarterback and he gets slighted because of the turnover, the amount of turnovers that we just don't see this crazy offensive output by the Seattle's offense points-wise that immediately he gets criticized for it. But he has a poor offensive line. He has to play hero ball. We see it impact the run game with Kenneth Walker and it's affecting his efficiency. And they still have DK, they still have JSN, but Geno has to do so much because he's trying to overcome, the offense is trying to overcome a bad offensive line. Similar with the Dolphins, in my opinion. Now, this defense didn't show up, and I want to tip my cap to the Packers. They did whatever they wanted, whether it was rush the football efficiently, whether it was pass efficiently. And I think Jordan Love played an extremely clean football game. He had that one play over the top to Christian Watson. That was the real star play for their offense, at least passing-wise. But really, he was methodical, similar to Tua, in my opinion. The one thing that differs between the two of them, in my opinion, in Thursday night's game was Jordan had a little bit more help in the rush department, and, of course, that big play over the top. Now, the Dolphins didn't have the luxury of having a stop early on in the game. Well, they did. And then, of course, the muff punt by the special teams, and then immediately leads to 7 points. Dolphins don't score on that next drive. Then the Packers go ahead and score again. Dolphins weren't allowed the chance to start off slow, unfortunately. I look at this game, and again, the offensive line, the lack of rush defense. But when are we going to start holding Mike McDaniel accountable? That's really what I want, and I'm tired of it always being on Tua. because I don't think Tua is nowhere near the top of the list of reasons why you lost versus the Green Bay Packers. It's that simple to me.
Well, according to you, it's never been on Tua. It's always been Mike McDaniel.
I've never, ever.
After the Chiefs game, whose fault was it, Dels?
It was the cold.
It was, no, whose fault was it?
McDaniel. It was McDaniel.
It was McDaniel.
What did I start my spiel with? I said, this is my first time watching a Dolphins loss. And in my heart, I felt, I don't blame Tua. What does that immediately say? In other losses in prime time, I knew in my heart that Tua was to blame. That is what I started with.
Yeah, but I've been here, and it has not been how you've reacted after every time Tua underperforms.
I think it's more so selective listening.
No, whenever Tua...
Because I'm very vocal every time.
Dels, am I crazy? What was his stance after the Chiefs game when they lost?
Tua was bad. He was bad.
He admitted to it was bad.
Yes.
He definitely did.
It was after the offensive line. To this.
Not really.
My
He was
biggest
bad.
takeaway.
He was definitely part of the reason why they lost.
Yes.
My biggest takeaway from this game is not about the Dolphins. It's
Fair.
about the Packers.
They were awesome, man.
And the Lions, I've
respected it.
never left.
I respect
I've never
his
left.
face is very
I've
dormant.
never left.
Very, very in the cut.
I've
Now
The
never
he's out.
Chargers had him with the crazy stiffy.
I've never left. I watch the Packers every single week. I'm always watching
Just took
them.
your Dolphins win to say they can win again. You haven't said it in a while.
No, not
That's what
really.
the Dolphins
I never
are
said they
gonna
could
do, man.
lose.
you
Last
just been loud about it.
last week I made a tweet. I said the top four.
Just
of the
remember you
NFC
taking Geno
is
over Jordan.
contenders. Well, Geno Smith is an exceptional quarterback.
You just haven't been as loud with your Green Bay Super Bowl picks.
and I
Jordan's
did say Geno Smith, if he's on the Packers, I think they're contenders too. Like I
Listen,
think Jordan Love got a higher ceiling.
Don't try to hide it, bro. You pick Geno. It's fine. It's fine. You pick Geno. It's
Wait, hold on.
fine.
That's
fine.
It's fine. There's the thing. I've always been here with Green Bay. That's number one. The Eagles and the Lions, they've been the cream of the crop in the NFC.
doubt.
The Lions are on a win streak. The Eagles are on a win streak. And it's made us forget about how dangerous the Packers are. I don't think the Packers all season long have played their best brand of football. We have seen Detroit at their best. We're seeing the Eagles at their best right now.
For sure.
We have seen the Vikings at their best early in the season when they were beating top-level teams back to back to back. With the Packers, it hasn't been that. It's been a little bit rocky. Jordan Love gets injured week 1. Malik Willis starts. Matt LaFleur still wins with Malik Willis. When Jordan Love comes back, Jordan Love plays through an injury, and that throws off how he manages the pocket and his throws.
Jalen Hurts was injured last year.
It threw Jordan Love a little bit off. Since the bye week, Jordan Love has been clean. He hasn't turned the ball over. He's had an above 100 passer rating, and he looks visibly healthy. The Packers are a top 10 in offensive and defensive EPA per play.
Oh.
They're a top 10 rushing offense in the league. They're one of the elite rushing offenses. It's not only up front, their offensive line playing well, but these receivers block as well as any receivers in the league. They're that good, and I think that is the showing of a great coach football team. You look at the Packers, great head coach, a great quarterback, a great offense, a great run game, a great defense, and they have game changers at every single level. The Packers are as dangerous as any team, and right now we have not seen them play at their best. I think Jordan Love is going to continue to play well. He's going to finish off this second half of the season like he did last year, and we're going to look at them as one of the top contenders in the NFC, and this team is capable of going to the Super Bowl. This team is capable of making it out the NFC. They are that good.
They're a good-ass team.
They're nice.
They're not in Detroit and Philly's tier though.
They are. They only lost by 2 points to Philly.
Yeah, I mean Philly now is different than Philly week 1.
It's a lot
beat 'em.
different.
The Packers are different now too. They're better than that point too.
Philly's way better.
We're way
though.
better.
The
Packers
Packers are better.
are way
The
too.
Eagles'
too.
rush defense week 1 is not what it is
The
right
Packers
now.
were not able to run the ball at all.
No.
With
Wait,
Josh Jacobs
that's
that
not
game.
true.
In the
The
first-
second half, they started to
Yeah.
cook.
In the first half, they didn't run the ball well at all.
Second,
Both teams are way better. The Eagles beat them. So that's like kind of the,
Yeah,
good
but
point.
the Packers,
And the Eagles have looked more dominant.
I can hear the Packers can upset the Lions. I can hear that.
the Packers going up against anybody, I give them a chance.
Eagles right now.
yes, yes,
oh
yes,
yeah.
No, and
I
not
just
just
don't think they're
not
this year.
not just a puncher's
Yeah.
chance. No, a realistic chance.
Yeah.
They have
can-
a realistic
they can-
chance against the Eagles where the Eagles are playing right now.
Yes.
I think in Philly, it's no shot.
I don't disagree with Riv right there.
They have a chance.
Just-
I think I can hear Green Bay against the Lions. It's a division game. The Lions secondary, we've spoken about it ad nauseum. We're not the hugest of fans. And, of course, Jared Goff, you never know what version of him you're going to get. Although he did play a pretty clean game against them last time they matched up. Against the Eagles, though, the way that defense has been playing.
65-35.
Much like
I think that's a very good.
60,
Zach Bond and N'Kobe Dean have played well for the Eagles. Mostly Zach Bond. He's playing at an elite level. The Packers defense, they've been great all year.
Cooper DeJean, too.
But I'm talking about the linebackers right now because this is going to get to the point to the Green Bay.
Okay.
The Packers defense all year long has been really good. It's been a great defense. Kenny Clark was not playing well. Rashawn Gary was not playing well. Quay Walker was very green. He was not playing to his standard at all. And Jair, as recently, has been hurt. Against the Dolphins, they shut them down with Eric Stokes, Keyshawn Nixon. Like, these are like solid, serviceable players, but they shut them down with no real superstar corner.
I feel
Shut
like you've
them
been
down
vocal,
until
though.
they didn't.
I feel like you've been vocal on the side of Green Bay's defense not being great this year.
No, they have been good.
They've just been causing turnovers.
Yes, but this is the thing. How they play is like, think of it as like an umbrella, right? When you hold an umbrella and it's raining, everything around you gets wet, but what matters, and that's you. That's kind of like the Packers defense. The Packers defense,
didn't get that.
They bend,
but don't break.
They bend, they don't break.
Oh,
and Xavier McKinney mentioned it. They keep everything underneath. That's why you look at the Dolphins game. Tua had a 3-8 dot in the first half. Why? Because they're not letting you beat them with big plays down the field. That's what their defense is. And they are great situationally. And part of the reason why they weren't playing up to par is because you need a pass rush. And Philadelphia has them beat in the pass rush department. But Rashawn Gary's playing better as of recently. Like, he's playing close to how he played last year, which is a positive sign. Kenny Clark is playing better. Aaron Mosby, I've mentioned him. Lucas Van Ness is having a couple good games here and there. To this point, he's been mostly a bust.
It just speaks to how bad the Dolphins O-line is if Lucas Van Ness is getting a sack on you.
No, exactly. And Quay Walker, really. Quay Walker is the mic. He's been calling out the plays. It's been an adjustment for him. And he's playing like he's not thinking right now. He's playing with straight instincts. And he has a lot of natural talent. He can be one of the better linebackers in the league. When you have Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams, they're game changers in the secondary with Jair Alexander. They have legit game changers, and their defensive individual players are starting to play better now, like Rashawn, like Kenny Clark. They're starting to play much, much better. And the Russian attack, the brilliance of it with the designs of Matt LaFleur, like that is, you're telling me in a playoff setting, he gets to game plan for one specific team, all the chips on the line. There's no coach I trust more in the NFC than Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur is the best coach in the NFC.
Sean McVay.
Yeah, he's better.
Kyle
than
Shanahan.
They're both better.
Kyle Shanahan could be
confused.
could be a toss-up. I could hear Matt LaFleur in that. Matt
Sean McVay, though,
Matt LaFleur has this.
I like Matt LaFleur.
Matt LaFleur has the second most wins
O'Connell
by a head
or
coach
LaFleur?
in his first 6 seasons. I'm going with LaFleur.
But we all agree McVay,
O'Connell's
right? It's
doing
like-
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
O'Connell's doing it with Darnold, dude.
But
He did it with
I mean,
two
I
games
know.
with Malik.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I'm not saying Matt LaFleur isn't elite. I think he
fair,
is
like,
elite.
I've always liked Matt LaFleur.
Yeah.
But O'Connell,
I'm cool.
dude,
I'm cool with Matt in this
I don't know
conversation.
what he's been able to do with Sammy.
I think they're in the
has
same
moved the
tier at
shit
the
out
Well,
of me.
Matt LaFleur, he's been able to work with Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, you know, he didn't get credit for that, even though I do think that now, looking at how much of a prima donna
Agreed.
Aaron Rodgers is, it was much tougher to work in that environment. And Rodgers, we have to remember that before LaFleur got there, he was looking washed. That's why they drafted a quarterback. And then he had back-to-back MVP level seasons. And then that quarterback that he drafted that everybody criticized so much, he became a franchise quarterback. And Matt LaFleur had him playing at a high level. And then when he got hurt, people thought, oh, the Packers season might be over, but here comes Malik Willis. You change around the entire offense. You scrap it entirely. It's a whole different brand new scheme. It's more collegey to fit Malik Willis, and they win games.
Shanahan made the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo.
I mean, I understand, but Matt LaFleur, amongst all head coaches in NFL history in their first 6 seasons, he's second in wins.
And
Who's won?
LaFleur,
Makes you curious.
It's
Is it an old
it's
guy?
it's his old coach that has 75 wins. LaFleur has 65, so it's a gap.
He's
Yeah.
probably one of them.
Shula, maybe?
It wasn't Shula. It was a very
John
old time
Madden?
coach.
Landry?
It was not Shula. It
I'm
was
actually
not John
curious who it
Madden.
is.
Tom Landry.
I just think the only thing holding the floor back is just the playoffs. He's never been to a Super Bowl. They went to one NFC Championship game, right? Just the one.
Yep.
It's against the Niners, right?
Against Green Bay.
Green Bay.
I'm sorry, Green
Yeah,
Bay against the Bucks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think that's really the only thing holding them back is that in the playoffs where all these other head coaches have had success.
You're right.
It was against
They
Niners
went
too.
back to back. No, they did go back to back. They lost to the Bucks and they lost to San Fran when Mostert goes for 204 tutties.
In a box.
Oh my God.
I think that's really the only thing holding him back, though. But I think just like bar for bar head coach, I do think he's one of the 5-6 best head coaches in the NFL.
I think his name is George Halas. He was a Bears head coach.
My biggest takeaway though from these slate of games was about the Dolphins. Wasn't about Tua though.
There should be no takeaway.
It wasn't about Tua.
It was not an issue.
He did throw some ducks.
It was one drive.
It was like 3.
One drive.
But I do think the Dolphins' issues are more deep rooted. Like, this is a team that hasn't won a playoff game in 20 years.
Facts.
This is a team that, in the 2 playoff games they have gone to, one was with Skylar Thompson, so you could throw that out, even though it was kind of competitive. The other game was against the Chiefs, and cold weather, looked completely outmatched. But Mike McDaniel, I think he's one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. I think for sure he's one of the best play callers in the NFL, how innovative he is. He's 1-10 in his last 11 games against teams over 500. He's 3-14 all time in terms of playing winning teams in his head coaching career. He's someone up until this point has not been able to prove to win the games that matter. As much as Tua's in this mix too, I agree. And again, some of these games are without Tua, so not exactly, fair across the board. But regardless, Mike McDaniel at some point has to be looked at. And I think one of the biggest issues he has is he's still young, so I don't want to complete put on him, but I think of Sean McVay. And when Sean McVay went to the Super Bowl, a lot of his stuff was zone scheme heavy when he's running the ball. When you look at 2018, they were first in terms of zone scheme runs, about 25 per game. In 2020, he was still doing a bunch at 21 times. They won the lighter offensive lines in the NFL, and that's how they had so much success with Todd Gurley. They went to the Super Bowl against New England. It got shut down, right? The final score was 14-7. It was close, but they got shut down offensively. They could not move the ball whatsoever. And since then, Sean McVay has changed a lot about how he runs, right? It's a lot more duo heavy. And they went from one of the lightest offensive lines to entering this season, they had the 3rd heaviest offensive line. So he kind of changed his entire offense, or what his offense is based around. And I think that's one of my issues with Miami. They're such a finesse team. They have coming into the season, the lightest offensive line in the NFL. You have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Achane. Then you draft Malik Washington as a receiver, who's this skinny, fast guy. Jalen Wright. Mostert, who's a bigger back but fast. They have an identity, and it's obvious. It's speed. We're going to be faster than you, and we're going to beat you down the field. That's what we saw for a majority of, the first, couple years, really. I think of that first season with Mike McDaniel there, coming back and scoring 30 points in the 4th quarter against the Ravens. That was really the identity. But over time, teams have figured out how to slow down this offense. Like we saw with the Packers, they're not going to get beat over the top. And when you're such this finesse team and you get into these cold weather games on the road against big, heavy, strong, physical teams, that's what it looks like more often than not. So while I wouldn't move off McDaniel to a no wholesale changes, I do think Mike McDaniel at some point has to realize what works in his offense and what doesn't work. And it's hard to do, but Sean McVay did it. Same coaching tree. Someone who's offensively gifted. When he got hired, we thought he was the best offensive mind. We still think he's one of the best offensive minds. His ability to change and adapt to what got figured out and what got better down the road for him. That's why the Rams were able to, I know they haven't been to the Super Bowl or anything, but they've been able to stay competitive. And when he said, all right, some of this shit didn't work, go get Matt Stafford. Let's change how we really build our offense around. And now they're competitive when they're healthy, at least. So I do think that's one of the bigger flaws in Miami's just kind of franchise right now, outside of not winning a playoff game in 20 years. Those biggest games, they haven't really looked like they fit, and they haven't looked like they belong against some of the best teams and best coaches in football. So I do think at some point Mike McDaniel has to sit back in the offseason and be like, let me change something here to make us a bit more balanced.